We're coming up over the 3-month mark, or the proverbial 100 days are on the horizon of a new administration. And when that happens, people like to take stock of it. Given the furious pushback against Trump, both from the left, from the Democratic Party, and many of centrist independents, even libertarian Republicans, you'd think that things were not going well. But a recent poll by CNN showed that Donald Trump had wide approval. Another poll has just come out where he was up to 54%. Given the media hostility, you would think that he would be completely negative, but he's not. He has the confidence of the majority of the American people. Why is that? Let's just take a quick tour of what he's done in the first 100 days. He has completely reversed 10,000 people coming in a day, over 300,000 a month, 12 million in 4 years, to essentially 98% of the border is secure. In fact, there is no open border now. Now he has pivoted to try to address the 12 million people that Joe Biden not only let in, but scattered all over the United States on often state, federal, local subsidy. That's going to be a task. But he has shut the border. No comprehensive immigration reform, none of the things they said was necessary, none of the things that said that it was impossible, that hampered by. He just did it. We've never seen anything like it. He has revolutionized energy. There is no new Green Deal. There's no electric vehicle mandate. We're not going to be funding more boondoggles of high-speed rail. We're going to burn clean coal, restore the Appalachian coal fields, those in the West as well. We're leasing out new oil fields. We're trying to get liquid natural gas shipped to Europe that's in dire need of it. We're continuing fracking. We're producing so much energy that the price of oil has gone. At one point in the Biden administration, was $120 a barrel. It's down to almost 60. And by the way, he's not draining the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and he won't do that before a midterm. If anything, he will begin filling it again pretty soon. On the DEI front, he didn't have to get into DEI. That's the third rail. He just said it's over with because it violates the recent Supreme Court ruling that found that Harvard and the University of North Carolina were culpable for racist practices against Asian American applicants. The law is on Donald Trump's side. The court decisions are on Donald Trump's side. And now DEI is being purged from government auspices and private corporations. Everybody says, well, I'm Rip Van Winkle. I woke up. What were we doing? We were doing exactly the opposite of what Martin Luther King. We were judging people by the color of their skin, by their superficial appearance, not the content of their character. That is a revolution. And then suddenly everybody said he wiped out the stock market because he insisted on not just free trade, but fair trade. And he said he was going to sanction China, and he did. Now all of a sudden we have 70 countries trying to negotiate. And as I'm speaking, nations such as Italy or Japan want to make a deal. What is a deal? A deal is they're not going to run up surpluses at the same extent. We have a $1.1 trillion trade deficit. Donald Trump is going to get in the next few weeks a few major nations, and once he does, to make a deal, all the others will not want to be without a chair when the music stops. They will want to follow. When they follow, China will be eager to negotiate because its efforts to get Europe on its side have failed. If you look very quickly abroad, Donald Trump is still trying to find peace, and no, he's not Putin's puppet. He's been very tough on Putin. He suggests he would have a secondary oil boycott on nations that bought Russian oil. It's something Biden never imagined. But he is getting frustrated by both sides, and he's putting renewed pressure. In the Middle East, Iran is at its weakest point. Israel's ready to take out the nuclear facilities to the extent it cannot without sophisticated heavy bombers. And Donald Trump is not looking for an optional war. He's telling the Iranians, time is running out, settle, dismantle your nuclear facilities or else. The Red Sea is open for navigation. The Houthis are in retreat. There is nobody in the United States who wants to negotiate with Hamas or Hezbollah. It's an entirely new game. China is very worried that its companies are going to be delisted that are fraudulent from the stock market in the United States. They're very worried. There are 300,000 students. That is their pipeline to the expropriation of technology in the United States might have to go home. There's so many levers to pull that against China, and so much culpability on their part, that I think they will make a deal. So what am I getting at? Forget what the media says, forget what his opponents said, forget Mr. Garcia, forget Mr. Luigi Mangione, all of these distractions. The first 100 days have been revolutionary. We've never seen anything like it. Not during the Reagan administration, not during FDR, in terms of the magnitude of the changes. And that is why people are furious. No one in their right mind thought anybody would try to stage a counter-revolution and be so successful in the first 100 days.
Nobody would ever dare say that until Donald Trump came by and he just said one magic word, Pocahontas. And it was a word that he picked because it deliberately irritated the political correctness, because they hate Pocahontas. She's a Native American sellout by having a romance with a white colonialist. So, oh my God, he's still bringing up Pocahontas, and he said, and then he said, just take a DNA test. And why did she do it? She did it, and it was like 0.1 or something.
She should have stuck with the high cheekbone story.
I think my 3 children have more Native American. I asked them. They did, They did that. They had more Native American heritage than she did.
So, Victor, since you started in on the universities, there was an Atlantic article that was titled, and I read through it, "The Worst Job in America. Who would want to be president of an Ivy League school?" And they said no matter what these presidents do, they will get pilloried. And they used as their example Columbia, who is being forced by the administration to follow the law, and they're slow walking it. And then their other example is Harvard, who has refused to cooperate with the government.
Who would want to make $1 million and be given a lifetime exemption from plagiarism? Where's Claudine Gay today? She was president. She had every perk. I think she was probably, with her portfolio and her salary, over $2 million. And then she was fired and that's so terrible. It was so hard on her. And then she went into political science, and people said she's a plagiarist. Her whole career is based on plagiarism. And they said she was Harvard president. End of story. That's not such a bad life. There's somebody listening to me right now who was on a D9 all day long, and he's making $22 an hour in the snow working, right, in the Midwest. And you say to him, it would be a terrible job to be president of Harvard. You only make $1 million. So this is insane. And if it's such a terrible job, I think in my career at different universities as visiting professors, Cal State, U.S. Naval Academy, Pepperdine, I would say that I have met 50 faculty members who wanted to be deans, 30 deans that wanted to be vice provost, 20 vice provosts that wanted to be provost, 10 provosts that wanted to be president, and 5 presidents that wanted to be chancellors. So if it's so bad, why do they all want to do it? And they all want to do it because they love the big, beautiful university residence. They love the salary, and they don't really want to make change. The only president I ever knew that shook up things and really did things was Max Nikias at USC. He worked like crazy. That's one of the reasons they got angry at him, because he was. But the point is, don't feel sorry for these Ivy League presidents at all. They're running something that's so disingenuous. And as I said before, it's a mossy rock, and you turn over the rock, it looks nice on the surface, and then there's crawling animals underneath. And they are segregationists. They have everything segregated by race, dorms, safe spaces, graduation. Oh no, Victor, they're auxiliary, they're by choice. Then you go to those things, I used to go to some of them, and they're all one race. And the dorms, oh, this is the theme house. There's no white guy in the black theme house. There's no black guy in the La Raza theme house, unless he's from Latin America. And the weirdest thing is, it's if somebody said there's 20 or 30% white guys at the Ivy League, they're going to have a European something, that would, and I think that would be insane. They would go ballistic. The whole thing is a fraud. And then they're having remedial courses because they got into George Floyd panic and they thought they were going to we were the first to get rid of the SAT. Well, we were the second to. No, you were the third to get rid of comparative adjudication of high school GPAs. We dropped all that. So if you got a 4.0 at Selma High School, that was the same thing as prep school 4.0. That's what they were doing, and everybody's going to learn about it. They're going to learn about the student loans. They're going to learn about the biased faculties. They're going to learn about the segregated spaces. They're going to learn that if there's about 3 things at a university. If somebody comes up anonymously and says, Victor was a sexual harasser, or Victor said a hate speech word, they're going to call me before a forum. They're going to tell me no counsel. And I'm going to say, who said that? Can I relate you a story? It's very relevant. Okay.
Go ahead.
So I was at a university that'll be unnamed. And I had a colleague who was up for tenure. I won't mention her. And I was going to vote for her tenure. But I didn't think she was an impressive candidate, but I thought given who was tenured, she met that lowest bar. She filed a complaint against me because she said she was walking down an outside corridor, and we had heavy steel doors at that place I taught, heavy steel doors outside. There was no interior hallway, and it was loud with students. And she said for some reason she put her ear to the door, and I had to share. And she said that she heard a colleague say to Victor that wasn't that person very unattractive, and I said something to the effect that she was. I've never mentioned, of course. This was all made up. So she went and reported me for sexual insult. Imagine that, walking down a corridor and saying it was very noisy. And some administrator never. So I went in, and the vice provost for personnel said, "This is very serious, Professor Hanson. I know you think you're a hotshot with publishing books at this place, but we've got I said, what is the complaint? The complaint was that you said something that was derogatory about a colleague and it was off color. I said, well, who is the person? I can't tell you. I have to protect her constitutional anonymity. And I said, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I said, well, how did well, apparently you and your office mate were talking in the interior. So I said, apparently we talk sometimes in our office and he said, yes, and somebody was walking by, and I said, well, who is it? Is that the person that's the complainer? I can't give that information. And so, but it was of a derogatory sexual nature. It was something that she was so unattractive that nobody would want to something. I can't even think of it. And I said, so how did she hear though? Because it was out in the middle of the public. Well, she knew that you might be involved in her tenure decision, so she put her ear. So I said, so she was eavesdropping through a steel door outside, and she claims she heard this. But I don't even know who it is. I knew who it was, because he gave it away. But then my point is, I said, and you're going to investigate me. So you know what I said?
I bet you gave him example using him.
Yes. I said, dear Vice President X, I am going to see the provost, whom I knew and liked, and I'm going to tell him the following. What are you going to tell her? And I said, I am going to tell her that I was in a bathroom stall in the administration building, and I heard some commotion in the next stall, and I didn't know what was going on. So I got out of my stall and went over to the next stall and put my ear next to it. And I think I recognized your voice. And I think there was something going on with you there. And he said, that's not true. I said, I don't know. And I'm going to go make a complaint. But I'm going to say one thing. I do not want to be identified. But I'm going to say that Vice Provost X was in a bathroom stall talking about sexual things with somebody in that stall. And I just happened to hear it, so I put my ear against it. And I don't want to be identified, but I want action against him. So he looks at me. Well, that's not true. I said, exactly. So then he said, I'm a provost. I said, vice provost. And so I go and I said, I will guarantee you. And I was serious. And I said, it's 10-minute walk back to my office. When I get back to my office, I'm calling the provost to lodge this complaint. So that would be a lie. That would ruin you. I said, I don't care. I'm a farmer. I don't care. So I get back and there's my little phone. We had new phones. We used to have tape, cartridge tape for phone calls you missed, recording, and it was blinking. We had these new Sony phones. It was blinking 3 times, and the first one was, you're gonna be in big trouble. The second one was, I don't think this is wise. And the third one was, please don't do this. We've dropped all charges. We've dropped all investigations against you. And that's the kind of people that academia has. And I know that a lot of you think I'm crazy, but my point is, for 50 years in academia as a graduate student, a graduate TA, teaching in graduate school, being a professor in the Cal State system, being a visitor at about 4 different colleges, and being at Stanford University, I can tell you my respect for academics is very low. And so I don't have any empathy for somebody who says, in the Atlantic, of all places, the Lisa jobs, that we have to have empathy because these poor presidents who have allowed anti-Semitism. So they are now starting to act a little bit. Harvard is. They're worried that they have a joint program with Bezir University in Palestine, which was a hate fest. They have a campus, or I shouldn't say a campus, but a reciprocal agreement with and now they may drop it. So my point is, why are they doing all these things now? Why didn't they do it before? Why did Donald Trump have to galvanize? It's called money, money, money. They don't listen to anybody. They go up there and lie and say, oh, well, we're doing all They don't do anything. They disrupt classes. They don't do anything. Yesterday, Columbia had said to Donald Trump, we're going to punish disruptive students that are pro-Hamas. And they just chained themselves to the gate. And they said, this is in violation of Columbia's statutes, especially our newly enforced ones. And then they called the police and they unbolted them and they said, see you. Go away. But there was never anything. They just committed a felony by locking themselves to a gate illegally, and they're going to be expelled. So it's not a hard job. It really isn't. I mean, it's a hard job, but it's not a hard job like Juan, the guy that put my roof on, and Victor, look at this! And he's got 40 pounds of Prudential shingles on his shoulder as he's tiptoeing 30 feet above the ground on the crest of a 2-story Victorian house that's 150 years old with that weight on it. I mean, that is courageous and that is hard. Or some of the people, it's not like Juan and Armando that were up in the attic at 120 degrees rewiring the house in July. You know what I mean? The poor guys that were taking all the insulation out of this house, and I went up there with them with a mask, and there was some illegal glass insulation, there was dead mice, there was a dead owl, there was a dead cat, and they were out there, and it was 140, and I was bringing them water. That is a hard job, and I tipped them. I tried to give them as much money but my point is, people listening have empathy for people like that. They don't have empathy for people who go before Congress and make $1 million and lie to their teeth. They don't. And I wish people would keep that perspective in academia. They are the most blessed. It's a hard job to teach and correct papers and everything, but you look at how many hours you're actually in the classroom, and summers. It's not it's not driving a truck down the 99 every single day for 12 hours.
Well, that was my impression with that Atlantic article. I thought, wow, this is just telling us the caliber and the character of the people they have to choose from if they can't find anybody to run the place.
Every once in a while, they find somebody.
That's really good. Well, Max.
John Silber at Boston. He just fired people. Max Nikias at USC. And then what do? They try to get. You can't be that. You're not supposed to be forceful, direct, and honest.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be double dealing and talk out of both sides of your mouth and contextualize. On the one hand, this is very important, and we'll form a committee, but let's not rush to judgment. I have to hear three sides of every argument, as when that's what they want.
If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our latest content.